information because for the last year, year and a half, Lyft has been restructuring the organization. I wanted to give you a little bit of insight as to why we're doing what we're doing and why we sort of changed course a little bit in the kinds of services and the kinds of things that we're doing to help manufacturers on Long Island. So if you bear with me for a few minutes, I just wanted to show you some of the demographics that we've been looking at very closely for the last 2 or 3 years and the conclusions that come out of some of those studies that we've seen. And that really has directed us to do what we're doing. So I'd like to start off with an eye chart, and there will be a test at the end. There was a study done, an extensive study done a few years ago, so this data is a little bit old, but it's the most recent data that we have been able to find. Taking a look at the distribution of manufacturers on Long Island. There are a lot of stovepipes in this chart, and it's really not the way that those of us that Lyft really think about industry on Long Island. So we took this data and we sort of massaged it and put it into a context of the way we think of things. So we look at industry on Long Island right now as a series of industry clusters. And I know a lot of you have heard that term in the papers, and it's a good term, I think, to represent in a concise way how we vision manufacturing on Long Island and where it fits. So if you look at that, we've tried to put all of those companies that I just showed you into 10 stovepipes, ranging from the biotech, the energy, the defense business, pharma, IT software. You can read those. And part of our study was to take a look at the skills requirements of what was the workforce needs in order to help those businesses. And as you can see, there are certain things down on the bottom in IT and manufacturing processes that pretty much go across all of the sectors. Oh, sorry. There it is. There are certain areas like IT and manufacturing processes that go across all of these clusters. There are other skills that with a little bit of retraining to a workforce, there are what we call transformational, transferable skills that can be used across cluster with a little bit of educational background to help that employee be trained in a particular discipline. So this is the way we've been looking at Lyft, at the manufacturers on Long Island in the eyes of Lyft. Now let's take a look a little bit at the number of employees, the number of companies. We then took a look at those companies and we then said, well, how many companies are there in each one of those clusters? So what you're looking at right now is exactly that. These are the number of manufacturing firms on that. And when I say Long Island, I'm talking Nassau and Suffolk County only. These are the number of companies that are in these stovepipes. And as you can see, the largest number of companies is still in the defense and aerospace and homeland security business. There are over 800 companies still on Long Island that are in that particular business. So these are the folks that have been the leftovers of the heydays of the 70s and the 80s. These are the people that have survived the last 15 plus years of downturn in an industry. These are companies that have found a way to survive in a very, very tough environment. These are the people that we need, at least we believe at Lyft, we need to do everything we possibly can to help survive. And that goes with all the companies here on this chart. Now I want to look at another thing. That's the number of employees that are in each one of these clusters. Another very interesting dynamic jumps out at you. The highest number of employees by far is in the health service and healthcare industry. The next highest, however, is in the defense and aerospace industry here on Long Island. So now you're starting to see a little bit of how we're looking at this industry. There are certain clusters that far outweigh others in terms of where the training needs to go and the kind of training that needs to exist. Now let's go one step further. Take a look at some average salaries. This was a surprising metric to me, but you have to recognize that there's a little bit of unfairness in this too, because it's a manufacturing pitch and I came from the defense industry, so I'm going to begin with it. But when it's your pitch, you can massage the numbers. When you add the healthcare services and you look at things like doctor salaries, but then you combine it with care services, the average salary amongst those 70,000 plus or 60,000 plus employees averages out to a little over $45,000 a year. When you compare that to defense and to second and third highest, which is the arts and computer graphics, comes out to $55K in the defense and homeland security area, or $35K. So these are just some of the numbers and a trend. You can hold me to the numbers if you want, but they're not exact. But it was just a trend that we wanted to show you in terms of the salary. Now here's the real kicker. What we did now is we looked at the size of each company, how many employees are actually in these companies. There are roughly 30, a little under 3,500 companies on the island in manufacturing. But when you look at them, I'm just going to jump ahead a little. Well, let me just say one thing. These companies represent about $20 billion of GMP, which is the gross municipal product, which is one of the economic indicators that economists like to look at. So this is a $20 billion income coming into Long Island. The total GMP is about 120 million. So roughly 1/6 of the island that brings income is due to manufacturing. If you accumulate 75% of the companies have under 25 employees. Think about that, 25 employees. 90% have under 100 employees. We don't have a lot of big companies in manufacturing on Long Island. The days of the primes, I've been quoting this before, are gone on Long Island. There are not a lot of primes left. There are divisions of primes like Northrop Grumman and BAE. There are a few primes left like Computer Associates, like Telephonics. But the days of having primes, having the real decision makers, the real customers in this industry, they're not on Long Island anymore. They're off island. That's a scary thing, but that helped Bill and I sort of see what we need to do from a living perspective to help these industries survive. So, the new mission for us, how do we help these companies? How do we help Long Island in general? We sort of broke it into three categories. We need to retain the companies we have. This is very important. There are a number of organizations on the island that are doing this. Andrea Lonice, Economic Development done by the state, certainly doing a lot with her office, tax incentives, and keeping the businesses here on Long Island. The various WIVs across the island, as well as some of the groups like the Long Island Capital Alliance, the Long Island Angel Network, providing equity to these folks. And so we see that the retention of these companies who represent 75,000 employees on Long Island, with hopefully 75,000 families that come with them, that are here, that own property here, they have a reason to stay here. And these are the people we need to help. Then we need to expand their business. What can we do to help them expand the company that they have? We want them to grow from that 25-person shop to a 50-person shop, and there are a few people right now on the island that are being very successful at doing that. People like Peter Taliater at Air Industries, who has, I think, probably quadrupled his business in the last 5 to 7 years. There are people like Ed Fred with CPI Aerospace, who is growing his business. So there is a need for the talents that we have here with the businesses that we have. What we need to do is get them more market access. And that's a key for LIFT on a go forward.